Okay, this is the demonstration video for the power supply circuit for our DIY 3220 point breadboard project. As you can see here, I have our prototype circuit set up here. I'm not going to go over all of the components here in this video. This is just going to be a demonstration video on how it works. You can see the details for this prototype circuit at our website at mottbots.com. But what I will mention here is, starting from the far left here, we have our 12 volt DC input here from a 12 volt charge adapter that's currently plugged in. And uh, here we have two switches. This switch here will represent switch number 1, and this switch here will represent switch number 2. As you could see from the given schematics that you can obtain for this circuit at our website at mottbots.com. So again, this is switch 1 and this is switch 2. This yellow binding post will be our 6 volt output. This blue binding post will be our 9 volt output. And then this red and green binding post is the input for the benchtop power supply that's off camera here. And I currently have my benchtop power supply at 12 volts. So that feed comes into these two binding posts. This is the positive and this is the negative. And then I have a jumper wire here that represents the output jumper wire from the benchtop power supply. So if you were to look at the schematics shown at mottbots.com for this project, this jumper wire here represents the pin connector wire to the positive supply of the breadboard, and that supply comes from the benchtop power supply. So this would be that positive supply that you could plug into your power rails on your breadboard. So I have these two multimeters here. This multimeter here is connected to the benchtop power supply output. I have the negative to the common ground, and then the positive is connected to this output jumper wire here. And then I'll be using this multimeter here to make measurements for the 6 and 9 volt output later. So if I take switch 1 here, switch 1 controls whether or not we're using the supply from the 12 volt charge adapter or the supply from the benchtop power supply. So if I switch the switch in one direction, you can see that the red LED lit up. This red LED indicator light tells us that we're currently using power supply coming in from the benchtop power supply. And as you can see here on this multimeter, we're reading a voltage of 12 volts. If I were to flip the switch into its off position, the indicator light shuts off, and I switch in the opposite direction, we can see that the green LED indicator light comes on, and the green light lets us know that we're currently have the supply from the 12 volt charge adapter is currently on. So now we can use switch number 2, and if we switch one way, we can see that the yellow indicator light comes on, the yellow LED comes on, and that means we're currently using power from our 12 volt charge adapter, and we currently have we're stepping down that 12 volt voltage down to 6 volts. So the yellow indicator light lets us know that the yellow binding post, the 6 volt supply, is currently uh, on. So what I'll do is I will take the probes from this multimeter and I will touch the negative to the common ground, and then I will put my positive probe onto the yellow binding post, and we see on the multimeter that we're reading an output voltage of 6 volts. And if I were to place this in the blue binding post, there's no output voltage because we currently have it switched on to the 6 volt output and not the 9 volt output, which is represented by the blue LED indicator light. So if I were to switch number 2, that's in the off position now. As you can see, the yellow light shut off, and switch it in the opposite direction. Now the blue LED indicator light is on. So now this is telling us we're currently using, again, the voltage supply from the 12 volt charge adapter, represented by the green LED indicator light, which is on. And we're stepping that voltage down to 9 volts, and we've turned it on, which is our blue indicator light. So right now, our blue binding post is currently should be showing an output of 9 volts. So if I touch the common ground rail here and then put my probe into the blue binding post, we see we have a 9 volt output. And then if I go back to the yellow binding post, we have no output, and that is obviously represented by the yellow indicator light, which is currently off. So we have the blue LED indicator light is on. We have an output voltage of 9 volts currently. Again, I can turn it on to 6 volt output. Our yellow LED is on. We have 6 volts output. Again, I can turn both of these two supplies are now off. I will just quickly go through and show that. 0 volts, 0 volts, nothing is on. Although the green LED is on, that's just to tell us that we have the switch number 1 on for our 12 volt charge adapter, but there's no supply going out yet because we have not flipped the switch for switch number 2. Both of these LEDs are off. If I were to, switch number 1, the green LED is off, and again the red LED is on, telling us that we're using our benchtop power supply, which again I had set it to 12 volts. It's off camera, you can't see that, but we can see it here on the multimeter here. So that's just our demonstration of our power supply for our 3220 point breadboard project.